Hello there, Internet. I am Towards the Max Extreme.
And I, Ghost Hunter Dave.
And today, we're going to call ourselves IMPERIUS REX.
That's right. Just for today. We're trying to...
We're today at Studio B, and we're going to be going over Doom Patrol as a whole.
We did a bit of a Doom Patrol read-through.
Don't want to toot our own horn, but it was okay.
It was. We tried something out. We did a full-on Doom Patrol book club over the course of 3 months.
Yep.
Covered the entirety of Grant Morrison's run on it,
yep.
and it was a good time.
Yes.
Quite good. At that same time, the DC Universe app, rest in peace, was kicking off the Doom Patrol TV show, which was also quite good.
Yes.
Who would have thought?
Not me.
And when you know, it pulled a ton from what we were reading in real time.
I know.
So it was like a full-on event that
Yes.
maybe like 9 or 10 people really enjoyed. And then right off of that, we also read up on Gerard Way's and Nick Darrington's relaunch of it for the Young Animal imprint, Doom Patrol. Went 2 trades, and then it's on a brief hiatus, so we knocked those out too, because why not? It's the most topical Doom Patrol we can get our hands on.
Yeah, you bet it is.
So we're going to talk about all that. It's going to be a big old catch-all, and then we're closing the door on the Doom Patrol. We're retiring them, because enough's enough.
Enough already.
We're on to Swamp Thing now.
Yeah. So enjoy.
Yes, Troy?
Thank you.
You betcha.
We mentioned before that we did a live show of every single trade of that Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol.
That's right.
Let's wrap it up here. What do we think?
You know what, Troy? This was something that we had a couple friends of the show asking us for our opinions on. Something I had the big old omnibus on my shelf, not here. The one time I can't reference it. We're in Studio B here.
Yeah,
you don't have that.
We don't got that shit here.
Nope. So it's been something I've wanted to read for a while, and we finally did it, and I enjoyed the heck out of it.
So did I. I was so, almost, it was like a daunting presence to read. The thickness of it alone. I was a little apprehensive about diving in. Plus, I also heard that's probably the weirdest things I could ever read in my life.
Which it is not. If you've read any Grant Morrison, it's beginner's Grant Morrison.
It very much is, because I find myself as a procurer of the curious.
That's right, you have a cabinet of curiosities right there.
I like a little bit of the obscure, so diving in, I really liked that it was kind of like weird for weird's sake. You didn't have to dive into like some heavy-handed Grant Morrison stuff. It was just fun, bizarre adventures featuring the world's strangest heroes.
That's right.
And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yep. So it picks up after like this fairly long-running stint of the Doom Patrol, or My Strangest Adventure. Was that what it was originally?
Yeah, maybe.
Something around there. We'll throw up on the screen.
We're not encyclopedias.
Yes. And at that point, the title had been floundering. Wasn't getting a lot of reads. They were thinking about shutting it down. I think it had gone through a couple restarts. And they got to the point where they're like, you know, we're at a loss. Just bring in that crazy Scotsman.
Right.
And let him go wild. Let him work his magic. Yeah. And he did.
He really did. I really like that at that kind of time in comics where it's like, we kind of got a title that's a little floundering. Let's just give it to somebody who wants to do anything with it. Yeah. That usually ended up being pretty good.
Oh, man.
I don't know if they do that anymore or not. I think they just cancel it outright.
Yes.
They're like, well, let's put out a 3rd Spider-Man book or whatever it is.
Yeah, make up the slack. Add another X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of these are all these great comics that people like have just rallied behind and made these like instrumental moments in comics.
Yeah.
Are teams and characters that before that moment were nothing.
Right.
So you had Swamp Thing with Alan Moore. You had Doom Patrol by Grant Morrison.
Yep.
Sandman, Neil Gaiman.
Yep.
And they're all Vertigo, too, wouldn't you know?
Right.
Yeah. I feel like the closest thing we have going to that right now is Tom King. where they're like, oh, Tom King wants to do a Vision book?
Yeah.
Sure.
Why not?
Let him.
Yeah.
Tom King wants to do a Mr. Miracle? We're not doing anything with him.
Yeah,
Why not? And
I
then
know.
every one of them is like, oh, that's amazing. I've never thought about him that way.
I know.
And that was kind of how these were.
Yep. Yeah. And then you have these seminal runs that'll be always remembered for all time.
Mm-hmm.
So going into this and we did 2 trades every single live stream.
Yep.
They started out super strong, but I would say maybe about halfway through, I do have a criticism that it gets a little bit samey.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's right around some of my favorite character moments where we get introduced to, like, Flex Mentallo.
Yes.
But I feel like he was kind of caught up in this moment where it's like, okay, I've had enough weird-headed, robed antagonists with, like, no clear, like, villainous plan.
Yeah.
Where it did all kind of mesh together.
Yep.
But yet, it was still good.
Yes.
But just like what you said, it was a little bit too much of the same.
Yep. But then you did have things like Flex Mentallo, which were standout issues. You had amazing things like Crazy Jane, like in the Underground, and all these moments that really fleshed out these characters, which they did not do before this.
Yeah.
And like even the fact that like, I mean, they hit this early on in the series, where like Robot Man being just a brain in a body that he doesn't even have any sensory touch.
Yeah.
And so he has like all these feelings, but he can't feel them.
Right.
And so he just like is an insane person that can go in bouts of rage. You have like the new Negative Man, now deemed Rebus as like a transsexual superpowered being.
Like a future being. You know?
Yeah. Which was only in this run.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever like picked up on Rebus after Morrison.
Yeah. And then Crazy Jane, and then you have the whole turn with Niles Calder at the end.
Yeah, which was a big twist.
Yeah.
Because prior to this, he has always been the team's leader, the Professor X, if you will.
Yeah.
Steering them towards, various catastrophes that they have to stop.
Yeah.
And then you find out, like, oh, he's caused everything that has happened to these people.
Right.
And turned them into the monsters, the broken people that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing that Morrison really, focused on, was all of these characters are broken individuals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're very comparable to the X-Men.
Yeah.
But the X-Men embraced their powers for the good of humanity.
Right.
Whereas the Doom Patrol, it's always a burden, it seems like.
Right.
Or they're not, they would rather be human.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I like the fact that they have that juxtaposed with, Niles Calder setting them on, the most batshit crazy mission ever. It's like, hey, these imaginary beings from an alternate universe
are scissoring, cutting people out of existence.
Yeah, scissor me timbers, Rita. Let's get on this shit.
So, do you have any who's your favorite character in the Morrison run that we did?
It's hard to say because when they really did a deep dive on one, I really liked it. But I'll probably say Robot Man.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Yeah.
I really liked Cliff in this. He's like the everyman.
Yeah.
In this, someone that you can identify that's in this horrible situation, and he just more than anything wants out.
Yes.
Wants to return to be a human.
Yes, I really enjoyed him. But then in other incarnations of this property, I liked other characters more.
Really?
Even though they do kind of the same things, I feel like more liberties were taken here or there in other genres. But I'll get to those when we move on later in the episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, consider me on the edge of my seat.
Oh, very good.
Whoa, I'm teetering. I need to go back to safety.
But yeah, overall, I'm super glad that we ended up diving into that Morrison madness.
Me too, and it was nice. It was a nice jump start to get all these people on board to read along with us.
Yeah. And there was even apprehension with that too, thinking this is really weird stuff. I don't know if we can do it. And then some people read it for the first time and really enjoyed it. So
yep. And other people tapped out, and they're like, "That's enough for me."
I understand.
Funny thing, I started reading this once a while ago when I was very early in the Morrison kick, and it didn't quite gel with me. I don't know if I knew what to think of it.
Yeah.
But having read his other stuff and then coming back to this, I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly what it looks like.
Yes.
It's very straightforward. It's
Yep.
weird for weird's sake.
Yep.
And there's no deeper meaning
Right.
behind it.
Yep.
But yeah, he introduces so many things in this.
Yes.
Crazy Jane is an original Morrison creation.
Yep.
Mr. Nobody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is, as we're going to get into later down the episode, but he's an extremely prevalent character in the show.
Yeah.
And also very prevalent in the comic as well. He's
Yeah.
kind of like their main adversary, I would say.
Yeah.
We get the Beard Hunter.
Oh,
We get
my
Flex
God.
Mentallo for the
Yes.
first time.
Yeah.
Like, just some really great, like, single or, you know, 1 or 2 issue stretches that are just, like, defining moments
Danny
of this
the
run.
Street?
Danny the Street?
Yeah.
For the longest time, I'd heard of Danny the Street, and
So
I just
have I.
could not comprehend it.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
like, oh, he's a sentient transvestite street. And I'm like,
what does that mean?
what does that mean exactly? Like, I don't know what you're talking. I understand all of these words, but not in that order. I can't fathom this.
Yeah.
And then reading it, I'm like, I love Danny the Street.
So do I.
What a great character.
It's like the oddest, greatest creation I think Grant Morrison may have ever had.
Yeah.
And it lives on here throughout almost. I can't even imagine not having a Doom Patrol without Danny the Street now.
Oh yeah,
I know.
absolutely.
It's craziness.
Yeah. So as the whole thing wraps up, it kind of winds down. They go on all these adventures. They find that Niles is responsible for all their current predicaments. Because he's obsessed with the catastrophe.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of like Hannibal Lecter, where he just likes to set horrible things in motion just to see how they go.
Yeah, really. Like, he's like a scientist without, like,
Any qualms or morals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like, let's see how this plays out. Let's just torture somebody and see how they like it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So, what he plans out, and eventually comes back and bites him in the ass.
Of course.
And he creates this nano creature that rips his head off, killing him. And then it becomes a manifestation of another Doom Patrol character, Dorothy's subconscious. Because she is a small ape-faced girl who can materialize her imaginary friends.
Yes.
And there's this horrible creature called the Candlemaker that lives in her subconscious.
Yep.
And he comes forward and just burns reality down.
Yes.
But it's interesting because he doesn't physically burn it down. It's only in, like, the subconscious at first.
Yeah.
So, like, in the real world, nothing is happening. But they say, like, but anytime something horrible happens, it affects, like, the dreams of people first.
Yep.
So in, like, the subconscious, everything is ablaze.
Yes.
And the Doom Patrol have to rally and stop this just Antichrist type of creature.
Right, yeah.
I love the part where Cliff gets ripped in half, and eventually he hops onto Niles' wheelchair and charges in. And I think at some point Niles even is like launching rockets out of the wheelchair too. Like, he's so much more formidable than Professor X.
Yes, so much more.
For a handy-capable individual.
For sure.
He is very capable.
Yeah. And he's got all of his hair.
Oh, yeah. Dashing hair and a great beard.
What a great big bushy beard.
Great big bushy beard.
But with all that said, I really enjoy Grant Morrison's run.
Me too. And it has a fantastic end point, too. This is one of those runs where it's the middle of the series. Even though it's like a highlight, there's stuff that comes before and after, but you don't need to read either of them.
Nope.
It's very much its own thing, and it has a very finite ending if you want to stop there.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, all the heroes go into Danny the Street, who is now transformed into Danny the World, and created, like, a fully fantastical land that fantastic people can go and live in.
Yes.
And Crazy Jane is left behind, and she's just dealing with the trauma of being, like, a person with multiple personality disorder. And they want to give her, like, electroshock and, like, basically kill everything that makes her special.
Yep.
And it gets to the point where, like, she's about to kill herself. She's going to jump off a bridge and end it. And Cliff comes back and says, like, join me and everybody back in Danny the World. And she joins him, but you're not quite sure if it's real or if it's in her head.
Yes.
And that's how it ends.
Yep.
And going forward, you get that answer. But for Morrison's run, it's such a great, like, spinning top via inception of an ending.
Yeah.
We were like, wow. Amazing.
So you went forward from this and read the run that was right after. Can you briefly kind of touch on that?
I did. I was just curious to see where it went from here. So Rachel Pollack, I believe, picked up after Morrison. And she picks up a couple of the dangling threads that he left. But overall, I feel like it was so weird that I couldn't even really enjoy it. Where Morrison's stuff was weird for weird's sake, I felt like her stuff was weird, but you would need to do more digging to get what it's even getting at. And even then, there isn't enough of a payoff to make it worth your while. And they introduce some more people, there's... Rebus is not in this. He's in Dannyland. But they bring in some more, Invisible Man garbed folks called the Bandage People. Where the new Doom Patrol headquarters is this, mansion out in the woods where all of these people died of sexual-related fatalities, like autoerotic asphyxiation and stuff. And they all kind of, come to life and drop in and out as, bandage people. That look kind of like Larry.
Okay.
But, you don't ever get quite enough to get a full picture of this.
Okay.
It's just a lot of kind of interesting ideas that I don't feel are ever fleshed out enough.
Okay.
And the artist changes from arc to arc, and I'm never, really big on any of them. I think Richard Case does it for a while, but eventually he drops off. And then the main one that kind of carries it out, I was just not a fan of. I thought his art was, it's super stylistic, but I did not care for it whatsoever.
Okay.
Especially Cliff. Robot Man just looks like a mess.
Oh, no.
But there's a couple standouts. There's one in particular that's really funny, where there's a character that has... I forget what he's called. It might be the codpiece.
Okay.
But he's this guy that has a very small penis. And he's constantly, compensating for it. And he, creates this giant dick gun. And he's using it to rob banks, and it's almost like Green Arrow's trick arrows, where sometimes it can be a boxing glove.
I love that.
And all this just ridiculous stuff. He's he's the equivalent of the Beard Hunter in that issue, where it's just this one great issue where it's this ridiculous character with all these gimmicks. But then when he's done, it just kind of goes back to the same, and I'm oh man, I wanted more of that. Just these weird one-offs. Okay. But you should definitely read that one.
All right,
because it's great.
I'll try to pick it up.
One of the absolute best things that Rachel brings to this is bringing Niles Calder's severed head back to life.
Yeah, you were telling me about this. I really enjoy it.
Where he's dead.
Yeah.
And Will Magnus, creator of the Robot Men, or the Metal Men.
Yeah, arch enemy to Niles Calder.
Brings him back to life and puts him on a robotic body.
Yeah.
And Niles is just so furious because he hates Magnus that he grabs his head and rips it off the body. It dies, and Will is like, oh my god, and he grabs it and puts him on a tray of ice cubes and runs him to a freezer, and that is how Niles is throughout the entire series. He's just a head on a tray of ice cubes. And he's constantly slurping chocolate milkshakes.
Oh my god.
Because he can't eat chocolate, so he's just slurping them and dripping it out his neck.
I mean, we're going to talk about this later on, but one of my favorite Niles moments in, a Gerard Way's run is when he's spying on somebody, and then it pans to them, and then it goes back to Niles, and he snaps into a chocolate bar.
He's just snacking. Yeah. Niles' love of chocolate is just so good.
So good.
Yes. She introduces another character who's, I think, one of the first transsexual characters in comics.
Okay.
It's a character called Coagula, who has the powers to coagulate or dissolve things.
Okay.
And it's male to woman transsexual. She's kind of the main character throughout this. She's
right
the eyes of this. And the author, Rachel Pollack, is a transsexual.
Okay.
Is that the term? Is it transsexual?
Trans.
Okay. All right. I don't want to offend anybody. But, it doesn't have, a good wrap-up like Morrison did.
Okay.
It just kind of got cut short. And I think they were probably in the middle of an arc, and they're like, okay, we're going to cancel Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
So they had to really quickly wrap it up. And you just didn't get any send-off. It totally ended with, I guess this is it. Now what do we do? Type of thing.
Okay.
And I don't think it did anything until it was relaunched, a decade later.
Okay.
So they didn't pick up on any of this stuff.
All right.
So it's unfortunate that after Morrison left, it kind of went out with a whimper. But if you end it with his, it's a good...
It's a decent stop until, like, Gerard picks it up.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, while we were reading this, fortunately enough, the DC Universe app was coming out with the Doom Patrol live-action series.
They were kind enough to make a show for us.
Yeah. And it ended up really blowing us both away.
That's right.
Like, we had no idea how this was going to go. We were very apprehensive on the Titan show that came out.
Yeah.
And so, that being that they were going to do the world's strangest heroes,
yep,
really kind of, like, set me back. But then once we dove in, I really enjoyed this show a lot.
I did, too. The fact that this was week to week rather than, like, the binge... like drop it all in one that we're used to through Netflix.
Yeah.
I think was a big plus to this.
I agree.
Because I was always like, I feel like this, you could overdo it.
Oh
and the
my
fact
God,
that
yeah.
like it always gave you just enough, and then you were wondering like, I wonder what they're gonna get up to next week.
Yes.
Like my wife watched this with me every episode, and she was really into it.
Yeah.
And if I tried to tell her anything about Doom Patrol, she would just zone off.
Oh my
so the fact
God,
that she was into this,
I
feel like if this was on a different service, it would have blown up.
If it was
Not
on
because
Netflix,
people loved it, but because it's so weird that you have to keep watching to see where it goes.
Yeah, if it was on Netflix or something, I feel like it would be talked about just as much as like Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, and as much as I love Umbrella Academy, I think I walked away liking this more because I can't believe that they did this.
I know. And they did things in here that's weird for weird's sake too. Granted, they grabbed a lot from the source material, especially Grant Morrison stuff. Almost all of Grant Morrison stuff.
Yeah, that was one thing where like going into it, I was like, man, I hope they touch on some Morrison Doom Patrol, not knowing that like Morrison Doom Patrol is essentially the only Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
And they completely pull from that. There are like cool little nods to stuff outside of his.
Yeah.
But it is very much an adaptation of Morrison's Doom Patrol.
For sure.
And they do it very, very well.
Yes. There are moments in this. I was going to say my favorite moment in this iteration of it is probably Larry Trainor stuff. I felt like the Matt Bomer scenes,
great in this.
when they do flashbacks of his stuff, was very moving.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed the Larry Trainor stuff in this, whereas, like, I couldn't really connect to him in the Grant Morrison stuff.
No, he was almost like a Dr. Manhattan character where he was so far removed from humanity that you couldn't identify with him.
Right.
But in this, you really feel for him. This guy that's just like, he is always putting on a face to people.
Yeah.
Like, he can't be himself around his family, and he has this lover who he's in love with, but he can't own up to that because of the time period.
Yeah. I loved all of that stuff. And the fact that, like, I don't think they even make that reference in any other source material at all.
No, I don't think he's ever been gay.
Yeah, I like that a lot, that he's playing this kind of dual role. It's almost kind of like almost a Rebus.
Yeah.
But he's like playing this dual role, like, yeah, I'm secretly gay, but I have this family, but it's in the 60s, I can't really come out and say this.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy, there's parts of this, like his story, that like brought me to tears.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never expected Doom Patrol of all things to do that.
Absolutely.
And it did.
Yeah.
And there's even like the reemergence of Brendan Fraser as being Robot Man, which now I read Robot Man as Brendan Fraser.
Absolutely. Yep. As we were reading this, I was like, it's only Brendan Fraser now, and it's perfect.
It really is.
And same with Tim Dalton as Niles Calder.
Exactly.
It's perfect.
I know.
So good.
It's really good. And I ended up really liking the show. If I had one complaint, and we've said it before, is that sometimes the writing in it comes off a little bit juvenile.
Yeah. Needlessly profane.
Yes.
Just for weird for weird's sake and profane for profane's sake.
It didn't need it. If it had just it sprinkled in here or there, I would have been like, okay, I think it's warranted then.
Yeah.
But when like Crazy Jane and especially like Robot Man and Crazy Jane specifically, they're very profane just to be profane.
I wouldn't mind if just one of them was.
Yeah.
You know, like that's their thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that both of them was a little much.
Yeah.
It's like, come on guys, you're creative.
Yeah.
You know, just like pick a different...
But then when like Larry Trainor decided to like drop an F-bomb, I felt like it was like
more
warranted or deserved, and it made it feel
more impactful.
Yeah, it had an impact. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And it also introduced Cyborg, which was a fun inclusion in the series.
Yeah, he was fine in it. And I really liked having Rita in it, too.
So did I.
Who was absent from Morrison's Doom Patrol. But I felt like she was very... It made sense to have her in this.
Yeah.
And her character growth over the course of the season was one of the, the most... flourishing in terms of characterization.
Yes.
Where at the beginning she's very standoffish, she doesn't want to do anything, and by the end she's the one leading the charge to go save the day. I'm like, that's good. I hate the effect that they do for her, but I think this show has a lot going against it. For one, it's super weird.
Yes.
That you would think who is gonna watch this and identify with it? And two, budgetary, they do some weird shit in this.
Yes.
That, how would you pull that off on this, very low-rent service?
Yeah.
But, for the most part, they did outstanding.
I agree wholeheartedly.
The effects, you can tell they kind of save them for certain episodes, and other ones kind of, they pay the price.
Yes.
And they have that one morph effect for Rita's leg in her face.
Yeah.
But, it's fine. I know that this is a treat.
Yes.
They don't have everything at their disposal, but what they're able to pull off with what they had at their disposal is amazing.
Yes.
And how, touching and emotional it is on the fact that this is, the weirdest thing imaginable. It's, Excelsior.
Exactly. That, and their adversary ended up being Mr. Nobody, pulled from Grant Morrison's run. I thought greatly done by Alan Tudyk.
I love the look that they came up with for Mr. Nobody.
Me too.
I like it more than how he looks in the comic, while still looking kind of like he does in the comic, as much as you can do with a real person. I like that he's just kind of something that you catch out of the corner of your eye. You're like, it kind of looks like a person. Just like a broken up person.
Yeah, and the fact that he is breaking the fourth wall, but very metatextually, even more so than Deadpool or anything like that. He knows he's in a Doom Patrol show.
Yeah.
And I love that. Because if it was anybody else, I'm like, that's way too much.
Nope. And if Grant Morrison didn't write this, it wouldn't work. It is purely a note on Grant Morrison as the writer of this. And then just as if we didn't have enough, we're gifted with Flex Mentallo. And and that is the one thing where it's when this kicked off, I didn't see anything about it, and I was like, fingers crossed, we're going to get Flex in there, a cameo.
Yes.
And then they slowly kind of build it up, and then we get Flex Mentallo. It's phenomenal.
It's super good.
It is, I'm good with that Flex Mentallo.
Me too.
I don't need another actor or anything. He is spot on.
Yep.
Charming, likable, just... the fact that we have Flex Mentallo on TV.
Right.
In a year ago, we did a Flex Mentallo episode without... We were so naive. I feel sorry for us. We had no idea what we were going to get a year from now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We got the Beard Hunter.
Yep.
I like that they made some connections that were not in the comics, like Dorothy being Niles' kid.
Yep.
Especially after getting that flashback episode where he met that weird immortal Neanderthal.
Yeah.
And that is who gives birth to Dorothy. It makes perfect sense.
Yep. It's it did the source material so much justice, and I feel like almost anybody can go into your wife, for example. My wife watched a few episodes and she's like, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
She didn't watch every single one, but anytime I had it on, she would sit down and watch it and end up liking it and would ask me questions about it later.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I'm so glad you're coming into my world.
Yes. And we got Danny the Street.
Yep.
An amazing episode of Danny the Street.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man. It's we don't deserve it.
No, we don't. And the fact that we got this and then Swamp Thing right off the back of it.
Yeah.
And we've said, it's obvious the DC streaming app is not going through good times right now. It doesn't seem like they know what they're doing with it. But just the fact that we got this Doom Patrol and we're going to get 10 episodes of Swamp Thing, and so far so good. Never would have imagined.
No.
I never would have guessed a Swamp Thing movie let alone we're going to get 10 hours of Swamp Thing.
Right.
On top of 16 hours of Doom Patrol.
I know.
Like, that's almost more than we've gotten of Iron Man. You know?
Yeah.
And it's Doom Patrol.
I know.
And it's good.
I know. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But it's there, and
Yes.
it's there. Like, it's on a niche platform. It's a niche series.
Yeah.
And everything about it is just so great that I can't imagine, like, the masses that now watch streaming services wouldn't enjoy.
Yeah.
It's too bad that it's just on this little platform over here. But then, let's just jump into what comes the most recent, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, no. Let's just jump into Gerard Way's follow-up with Doom Patrol.
That's
because
right.
it very much is influenced by Grant Morrison stuff.
So Gerard Way, a bit of a prodigy of Grant Morrison, or at least a friend, you know? You can tell they have similar interests. Took over the reins after coming off Umbrella Academy for Dark Horse. He started his own imprint at DC Comics called Young Animal. And, like, the flagship book was Doom Patrol. Relaunching Doom Patrol way before the series was even a consideration.
Right.
So this kicked off, and it kind of brings back, like, the original Doom Patrol team. He adds in a couple new members. He has a great, like, pop artist, Nick Darrington.
Oh my god, Nick Darrington's art is supreme in this.
I love it.
Me too.
I just want to read everything that he
So
is
do
part
I.
of. Like, he has that great Batman run right now with Bendis, I think, on the Walmart.
The Walmart books.
Yeah, which are going to be collected.
Good.
Because I really want to do that. And I don't know what else he's done, but I'm going to definitely check it out and see what he's attached to.
Like, his version of Robot Man is probably my favorite one. I really love that design.
Yes, me too.
Even to the point where, like, they do a Mike Allred episode, and I love Mike Allred. But, like, I missed Darrington's design in it.
Yes.
But even though I love that issue, I really love the design.
Leather jacket and shoulder pads
oh my
combo.
god, so good!
Yeah. So, I read the first arc of this in issue format because I love Gerard Way's Umbrella Academy. When this was launched, I bought every issue, and I read it as it came out, and I was like, I don't know what to make of this. And then I read Morrison's Doom Patrol finally, and as I read Morrison's, I was like, the Gerard Way thing is making sense now. And then I circled back and read Gerard Way's and fucking loved it.
Yeah.
So I would say, I feel like it's kind of inaccessible if you haven't read Morrison's Doom Patrol.
I would say...
if you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I would
Because this is
also
weirder
say that.
than Morrison's.
I don't know if it's weirder. Sometimes it's more meta, and I think it pulls back from his source material. Like, it harkens back to his source material more. So, like, if... I don't think it's any weirder. Morrison does some really weird shit.
Okay, but you need to have context of who the characters are. Like
Yes.
Danny the Street.
Yes, for sure.
No idea.
No idea, yeah.
Robot Man.
Robot
any
Man.
of those.
Any of them.
Crazy Jane, when her appearance, I first heard of Crazy Jane through Gerard Way's, and it had no impact on me.
Yeah.
But knowing her, her impact in Morrison's run, when she finally appears in Gerard Way's, it's like, oh shit, this is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Because no one's touched on her since Morrison kind of closed the door on it.
Right. I just finished up Gerard Way's run this morning on the DC Universe app. It's on there right now.
Oh, great.
All 11 issues.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Like, I'm so astounded that it even got made. And maybe it's because his name is, like, famous enough where he can, like, kind of do whatever he wants.
For a couple more years. Until he does, like, a Chemical Romance reunion tour. Then he'll get a couple extra more.
But, like, I really enjoy this. It brings back all your old favorites. It brings Robot Man. It brings back Larry Trainor as Negative Man. It does more with him, too, in this.
Yeah.
Like, to flesh out, like, a weird...
They do a separate kind of story arc with him where every time the negative spirit leaves him, he experiences a full life and death.
Yeah.
So he's just living countless lives every time he goes into battle, to the point where, like, that's all he wants to do. He's just always, like, sleeping.
It establishes a new character that you kind of, like, run throughout the rest of the whole run, which
Cassie,
I
Space Case,
which I really actually enjoyed a lot.
Yep.
And then it folds in all of Morrison's stuff and adds more onto it, and I feel like it's even more meta than Morrison stuff, especially in the second arc.
Yeah, I feel like Morrison's was never that meta. He's a meta writer, but he wasn't terribly meta on Doom Patrol.
Yeah, right. But, like, this, they do, like, weird things where, like, everyone's created from a comic book, almost.
Yeah.
Any new character. And, so it has, like, meta-textual stuff on that, and then harkens back to Morrison stuff, and then even to the point where the second arc is, like, redacted for the whole character in white silhouette that's redacted because of legal reasons.
Copyright.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a character who was, like, part of a toy line that injured some kids when it went out. So then, like, the character was pulled from every iteration. Like, he wasn't in comics or movies or anything. So that character in the comic is... Yeah, she's just completely redacted.
Even the point where, like, retcon is an actual place.
Yes.
And, like, I'm like, oh my god, he's really pulling heavy on, like, real-life shit, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we also got Mr. Negative returning.
Yep. Which I kind
and
of...
the Negative Man.
And
his daughter.
Mr. Nowhere.
Or
Mr. Nobody. We'll figure it out.
We'll get there. This is the third one, hot room with a lot of beers.
Yeah, Mr. Nobody comes back.
And I love he brings back his Brotherhood of, it's not the Dada.
It's Brotherhood of Nada.
Nada, yeah, Brotherhood of Nada.
And he's got all new characters in it.
I love the guy that's just legs.
Me too.
And I love where Flex Metallo is chasing him around and he's just like, where's your top half? I just want to know what you are. I just want to understand.
I really love it. That's all the only character I want to talk about. They have other characters that introduce, but they're not as interesting as just the legs.
Yeah. And then that Mike Allred issue, which is just like a total one-off. It's like in the spirit of the Beard Hunter and the Codpiece.
Yes.
There's the issue where Niles Calder brings back the team.
Yes.
And he just wants to send him on all these weird adventures. And he's just like this creepy uncle that just like wants to borrow money type of guy.
Yeah. I like that the sprinkle throughout the first arc in this. There's like a few pages always like, what is Niles Calder up to? And it's like just doing obscure things.
Yes.
And then he shows up in the Mike Allred episode, or I keep calling them episodes, but issues where like he brings back the team.
Dresses them all in the old costumes.
Yeah, I don't know how he got everyone together, but Larry's really behind Niles.
Yes.
He must have really had a speech when he showed up in his subconscious or whatever.
Yep.
And it gets the gang back together to steal some sort of jelly to pay off some debt to some other guys that are probably down his throat.
Just like card sharks.
Yeah. And then the whole Doom Patrol's like, you know what, Niles? You really suck. You're out of here.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
He's like, I'm sorry, guys. I do suck.
But yeah, I would say right after you read the Grant Morrison run, definitely just jump into the Gerard Way run. It is so good.
The cat person.
I love it. Especially
and it never makes sense. It never explained.
No, it's never really followed up on either. It ends up being Lotion the cat, grows into a cat person, ends up banging his master, and then it's never really touched on again until the redacted guy is just like, you banged a cat person.
Yes.
It's like, I did.
I'm an adult. I can do what I want. And the fact that, like, the cat person comes back is, like, a weird junkie who just, like, needs a place to stay and he's just mooching off of her.
Can I just drink some of the cream out of your fridge or whatever it is?
Perfect example of weird for weird's sake, but it's so enjoyable.
Yes. There's two great arcs of this. The first one deals with, what does the first one deal with?
The aliens that want to harvest the inhabitants of Danny Street to make into, like, hamburgers.
Yeah, and I love, like, what do they call, like, the trapezoid people or whatever they are. They're like some weird angular aliens that just want to deal with, like, selling perpetual meat that they continually create, because Danny the Streets becomes so powerful now that he can just create people.
Yeah, which is how Cassie comes to be.
Yeah.
She's created from a comic in Danny the Streets comic book shop.
It's really great stuff. And then there's that break with it's the Allred issue.
Yep.
And then it's the end where they have, like, that redacted man or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it goes on to the end. And then then it jumps in from there to a series, Milk Wars, which I've never read, and I really want to now.
Yeah, but I've got it, but I'm like, do I need to read the other Young Animal stuff leading up to this? Because I've only read Doom Patrol, so I'm going to wait on it for now.
But yeah, all in all, Gerard Way stuff is great. The Grant Morrison stuff is great, and the DC Universe app stuff is great. If you are ever curious about Doom Patrol, now is the time to get on board and read most of it.
Yeah.
But Doom Patrol, what do you think? Is it too weird for you? Do you love it? Do you want to dive into more? Let us know in the comments below.
That's right. Yeah. I'm happily closing the door on Doom Patrol, having embraced everything it had to offer and really enjoying it.
Same.
Like, it's one of those books where I've heard about it for so long, we finally did it, I'm happy to be done, but I'm looking forward to wanting to read it again in a couple years, where I'm like, oh yeah, I could do Doom Patrol again. That was a fun time.
I could do the exact same thing. You loved it.
Yeah.
So, until next time when we talk more, maybe about the DC Universe app, who knows?
Yeah.
I've been Troy to the Max Extreme.
And I've been Ghost Hunter Dave.
And we've been Imperious Rex. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.